There's a group of people in America that has never run a single ad, never knocked on a door, and turns away almost everyone who tries to join them. And right now, they're growing faster than almost anyone else in the country. In the year 2000, there were about 177,910 Amish in North America. As of June 2025, there are 410,955. That count comes from the Young Center for Anabaptist and Pietist Studies at Elizabethtown College, which tallies every settlement and church district in North America each summer. So in 25 years, the Amish population more than doubled, and it keeps doubling roughly every 20 years. No advertising, no recruiting. In nearly a century of records, researchers have found only 154 outsiders who joined the Amish and stayed, which means almost every one of those 410,000 people was born into it. Now here's the part that doesn't fit. While the Amish keep doubling, the rural towns right next to them are emptying out. Between 2010 and 2020, for the first time in the entire history of the US Census, rural America lost population. The young people leave for the cities, the schools close, the old farms go up for sale, and more, the Amish are the ones buying them. So how does a community that rejects cars, college, and most of modern life outgrow the rest of the country in the exact places everyone else is running from? The answer isn't really about buggies or beards. It comes down to two things almost nobody connects: how the Amish handle money and how they handle each other. And by the end of this, it's going to change the way you think about what a family actually costs. To see how strange this is, you have to go back about 125 years. In 1900, there were only around 5,000 Amish in all of North America. By today's standards, that is a rounding error, roughly the size of a single large settlement. If you had looked at them then, a horse and buggy sect quietly farming in Pennsylvania and Ohio, you would have bet on them disappearing, the way hundreds of small religious communities did. Instead, they did the opposite. From about 5,000 in 1900 to more than 410,000 today, the Amish have roughly doubled every generation for more than 100 years. Joseph Donnermeyer, the Ohio State sociologist who has tracked these numbers for decades, puts the doubling time at just over 20 years, an annual growth rate above 3%. For comparison, the United States as a whole now grows well under 1% a year and is actually shrinking across much of rural America. They are not staying put either. The Amish now live in 32 states and 3 Canadian provinces, spread across more than 3,100 separate church districts. Back in 2000, there were about 1,335 of those districts. Today, there are 3,114. Each district is deliberately small, and when one grows too big to worship together in a single home, it simply splits in two. Multiplication is built into how they are organized, and they are expanding into new ground fast. More than 60% of all Amish settlements that exist today were founded after 1990, and researchers estimate a new one gets started roughly every 3 to 4 weeks. They have added 6 new states just since the turn of the century, places like Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming, where you would never picture a buggy on the road. Most of these new settlements begin the same way: a handful of families, priced out of the expensive farmland in the old heartland, load up and move somewhere cheaper to start again. In the single year between 2024 and 2025, 9 brand new settlements were founded, and not one existing settlement dissolved. You can still see the old heartland in the numbers. The largest Amish community on Earth sits in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, with almost 44,800 people. Holmes County, Ohio is right behind it at about 39,000. Elkhart and LaGrange counties in Indiana come in around 29,900. Roughly 6 out of every 10 Amish still live in just those 3 states, in a patchwork of farmland, white farmhouses, and one-room schoolhouses. But that is the part that should stop you. A group that adds almost no converts, that has never once chased growth, is founding a new settlement every few weeks and doubling in size faster than almost any population in the country. So where is all of it coming from? Part of the answer is obvious the second you visit. Amish families are big, bigger than almost anyone you know today, and bigger than most of human history ever managed. The best demographic estimate puts the Amish total fertility rate at about 6.1 children per woman. Completed families, the ones where the mother has finished having children, commonly land at 6 or 7. In one Ohio community, researchers tracked completed family size falling from about 7.7 children in the early 1990s to 6.92 decades later, falling, and still more than 4 times the national rate. Sit with that number for a second, because the contrast is staggering. In 2024, the total fertility rate for the United States hit 1.599. That is the lowest it has ever been in American history, and it comes from the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics, the agency that counts every birth in the country. The line where a population simply replaces itself is 2.1. The nation is at 1.6 and falling. The Amish are at 6. That one gap does most of the work. If your community averages 3 times as many children per family as the country around it, and those children survive and stay, you don't need converts or immigration. You just need time. And it shows up in the shape of the population. In a typical American town, the ages spread out fairly evenly and tilt older every year. Walk through an Amish settlement, and it looks nothing like that. Roughly half the people you pass are under 18. Classic studies of the big Ohio and Pennsylvania communities found that around 52% of the Amish were children. It is a population built like a pyramid, wide at the bottom, packed with kids, with a long life sitting on top. Amish life expectancy at birth runs past 81 years. Put those two facts together, more births than almost anyone, and a long life on top of them, and you get a community with far more cradles than coffins every single year. That is the reverse of what is happening in almost every wealthy country on earth right now. But big families alone have never been enough. Plenty of groups in history had 6 or 7 kids a household and still faded out within a few generations because the children grew up, looked around, and left. Which brings us to the number that actually makes the Amish different. Here is what usually happens to a high birth community. The kids grow up. The modern world offers them more money and more freedom, and most of them walk. That is the story of almost every insular religious group in America, and it is the reason big families don't automatically mean growth. The Amish broke that pattern. Their retention rate, the share of children raised Amish who choose to be baptized and stay Amish as adults, sits at 85% or higher. A 2025 study in the journal Population Studies tracked members all the way to age 40 and measured cumulative retention just under that same mark. Think about what that means. Give an Amish teenager a car, a phone, a diploma, and the entire buffet of modern American life, and more than 8 in 10 of them look at all of it and choose the buggy. In fact, of those roughly 410,000 Amish, only about 185,000 are baptized adult members. The rest are children and teenagers who have not formally chosen yet. And if the pattern holds, the overwhelming majority of them will. You have probably heard of Rumspringa, the stretch in the late teens when Amish kids are allowed to go out and taste the outside world. The internet version says most of them leave. The data says the opposite. The overwhelming majority sample it, come home, get baptized as young adults, and commit for life. And retention has gone up over time, not down. In the 1960s, the Amish baptism rate was under 60%. Today it runs between 85 and 90%. Researchers trace a big piece of that turnaround to one decision in the 1970s when the Amish pulled their children out of public schools and built their own. Hundreds of small schoolhouses that keep kids inside the community during the exact years they are most likely to drift. It is not uniform, and honest researchers say so. In Holmes County, Ohio, one of the most detailed studies ever done found the strictest group losing under 3% of its young people, while the most progressive affiliation lost around 40%. But averaged across all of them, the community holds on to the overwhelming majority of its children. Now put the two numbers side by side. 6 children per family, and roughly 85% of them stay. That is a population engine that doubles itself about every generation, with no outside fuel required. And remember those converts, the outsiders who join from the modern world. In nearly 100 years of records, researchers could identify only 154 of them. The Amish are not growing because people are joining. They are growing because almost nobody leaves. Which raises the real question, the one this whole thing has been building toward. How does a single family afford 6 or 7 children when the average American couple says it can't afford one? This is where the story turns from a demographic curiosity into something genuinely worth understanding. Because the reason most Americans can't picture 6 kids isn't love, it is money. Childcare, college, healthcare, insurance, a bigger house, a bigger car. In the modern economy, every additional child is a bill that goes up. In the Amish economy, a child is closer to an investment. Start with work. Amish schooling ends after the 8th grade. No high school, no college, no student debt. From about 14, a kid moves into an apprenticeship on the family farm, in the family wood shop, in a business run by people they have known their whole life. By the time an outside teenager is halfway through a degree, they will spend years paying off. An Amish kid is already a skilled, productive worker who cost the family almost nothing to train. And those family businesses are not scraping by. This surprises people. Roughly 95% of Amish-owned businesses are still running 5 years after they open. For American small businesses overall, that figure is closer to half. Furniture shops, greenhouses, construction crews, roadside food stands, sheds and quilts and buggies sold to outsiders who drive in to buy them. And these shops hire from inside the family and the church first, so the next generation usually has work waiting the day they finish school. Donald Craybill, the sociologist who has studied these communities for decades, put it plainly. The phrase Amish millionaire is no longer an oxymoron. If you are finding this as fascinating as I do, take a second and subscribe. This channel digs into the Amish and the quiet ways their world runs on a different set of rules than ours, every single week. Now, the money story isn't even the strangest part, because the Amish also opted out of the entire modern safety net. The Amish mostly don't carry commercial insurance. They don't pay into Social Security. Back in 1965, they were formally exempted from it because to them, buying insurance is a bet against your own neighbors, and their neighbors are the insurance. When the Affordable Care Act arrived in 2010, they were exempted from its mandate too, for the same reason. When a barn burns down, the community rebuilds it in a single day for free. You have seen the photos, 50 men on a bare wooden frame, a whole structure going up between sunrise and supper. Everyone who shows up to raise your barn knows the same crew will show up for theirs. When a hospital bill lands, church funds and organized aid groups like Amish Hospital Aid, set up in 1969, absorb the cost together. Add all of it up, and the whole equation flips. Every extra child means more hands on the farm, more workers in the shop, more people to care for you when you are old, and more neighbors to raise the next barn. In a system like that, a big family is the best long-term investment a couple can make. And it runs all the way to the end of life. On this channel, we have talked about how an average American funeral runs $12,000 to $15,000. An Amish funeral, based on figures from Furman's Funeral Home in Lancaster County, which handles most of the Amish services in that area, costs around $3,600. Same reason as everything else. The community digs the grave, builds the coffin, and hosts the meal. Nobody is selling them anything. Now, all of this is happening at the exact moment the rest of rural America is coming apart, and the contrast is almost hard to believe. Between 2010 and 2020, rural America, the non-metro counties where most Amish live, lost population overall, something that had simply never happened before in the recorded history of the U.S. Census. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Research Service, deaths outnumbered births in about 55% of rural counties over that decade, up from 37% the decade before. More coffins than cradles in more than half of rural America, and it didn't reverse. From 2020 to 2024, population fell in roughly half of all rural counties in the country. Picture what that looks like on the ground. The graduating class leaves for the city and doesn't come back. The school consolidates with the next town over, then closes for good. Main Street loses the hardware store, then the diner. The family farm goes up for sale because none of the kids want it. That is the story of thousands of American small towns right now. And dropped into that exact story, on that exact land, are the Amish, growing at more than 3% a year. Across parts of Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, Amish families have quietly been buying up farmland that non-Amish families could no longer hold on to. When one of those farms comes up at auction, there is often an Amish family ready because they need the acres for the next generation that is absolutely, definitely coming. The same rural economy that is a dead end for almost everyone else is a launch pad for them. Not because the soil is different, because the community is. Now, I have been careful with the word fastest, and I want to be straight with you about it, because the comment section will be, are the Amish literally the single fastest growing group in America? Honestly, that is hard to prove. There are other communities growing at a similar clip. Hasidic and Haredi Jewish populations, for example, also double roughly every 20 years, for a lot of the same reasons: big families and tight retention. A University of Florida study found the Hasidic population doubling on almost the same timeline. So the honest, defensible version is this: the Amish are one of the fastest growing populations in America, and they are almost certainly the fastest that grows purely from the inside. No immigration, basically no conversion, just births and the children who stay. Nobody else is doubling itself on children alone. I should also be clear that these are careful estimates, not a government census. The Amish don't fill out religious surveys, so the Young Center builds its count from settlement directories, community almanacs, and the Amish newspapers, where each district reports its own numbers. It is meticulous work, but it is an estimate, and serious researchers treat it that way. Here is where all of it lands, though. If the current trends hold, and they have held for over a century, the Amish are on track to pass 1 million people around the year 2050, more than doubling again within the lifetime of most people watching this. To put that in perspective, 1 million people would make the Amish about as populous as the entire state of Delaware, a nation-sized community living by rules 2 centuries old inside a 21st century country. A group most Americans picture as a shrinking relic, a curiosity you drive past in Pennsylvania, is quietly on its way to becoming a small nation inside the country, entirely on the strength of the 2 things we started with. Not technology, not money in the bank, at least not the way the rest of us measure it. Children, and a community built so that raising them makes sense. So the next time you are driving through farm country and a buggy pulls onto the shoulder to let you pass, remember that you are not looking at the past. You are looking at one of the fastest growing groups in the country, doing it with the oldest tools we have. And if you want to see that same logic taken all the way to the grave, the funeral that costs 1/10 of yours, that is the video I would watch next.